Okay, I want to cover one final thing that I consider to be financially shady, and in some ways I feel a little bit of hesitation in broaching this topic because the person who drew this to my attention is a good friend and a fellow atheist, and we went round and round on some email discussion about this a while back. Basically, this is a thing that is very popular here in Texas lately, and it's called Liberty Dollars. And I think the reason that it's popular here in Texas is because I think Texas has an unusually high concentration of libertarians. Ron Paul comes from here, so that's no surprise in some sense. And Liberty Dollars is selling itself on some kind of quasi-political libertarian philosophy by a chap named Bernard von Nothaus. Okay, so what a Liberty Dollar is basically when you're buying a Liberty Dollar, you're not just buying some coins. You're buying into a set of armchair philosophy that says basically, we have this fiat currency. The government can print out dollars anytime that they want to, and that leads to inflation. And in the good old days, dollars used to be anchored to the price of silver. Or at first it was anchored to the price of gold. So a dollar was worth so much, some certain amount of gold. And then William Jennings Bryan, who got famous for being the blowhard character in Inherit the Wind, of the Scopes Monkey trial, he was also not only famous for his religious stuff, but he was also famous as an economic populist. And his big argument was that the people are being crucified on a cross of gold, and we should switch to the silver standard. It's all very obscure and extremely boring if you're not a financial type. So I'm not going to go into that too much. But basically, the argument here is now we're not on the gold standard, we're not on the silver standard. We're just on a standard that pushes worthless paper as being worth something. And if you think about it, all money, the whole concept of money is having some sort of unit which can serve as an agreed upon exchange rate for goods and services. Before we had money, there was bartering, and this is way back in history. There was bartering, and if you wanted to get an axe handle, then you had to trade some guy a chicken. And if you didn't have a chicken, then you had to go find somebody who wanted a chicken in exchange for something else. And it's like one of those long, annoying quest puzzles in Legend of Zelda or something. But what do you got there?
I don't know. This is I imagine with our nifty new cameras, we can actually zoom in. I took it out of the plastic, which I'm sure it'll have a glare. This is actually a $1 silver certificate from 1935.
Oh, really?
The key nice thing about this, maybe they can't zoom in. Maybe they're all broken. Anyway, I have a couple of these, which really, I don't know how much it ties into. Can you get any closer than that? Even closer. Get crazy close, because I'm going to do this.
Which part?
Which actually, if you pull a dollar bill out of your wallet, right here where it says 1, above it, it'll say some nasty phrase that was added in the 50s, in God We Trust. This one doesn't have this. So for those of you who've been living in the fantasy world that in God We Trust somehow proves that this is a Christian nation and always has been, you just haven't seen bills that are old enough. And also, I have, maybe I don't have to take this out of the plastic, because I'd rather not, because this one's in really good shape. This is a $2 bill as well, which on the back, it just has this nice picture of Monticello. Whereas, and this one's a 1953 series, so it's newer. It's right before things went to hell, because the newer $2 bills have this neat little, I don't know if we can possibly zoom in enough. It says "In God We Trust" down there, right underneath the picture of the signing the Declaration. So, anyway, back to the Liberty Dollars, but I just happen to have those with me.
let's see. So we've got all this stuff about the gold and silver standard as opposed to fiat currency, which is basically money that is worth something just because we say it is. And that's kind of the way currency systems work, and I don't feel like getting into an argument with people over whether we should be on the gold or silver standard.
There's a few other differences on these, though, too.
Yeah?
That don't just relate to the religious thing. I mean, obviously, the dollar bill from 35 is a silver certificate. The $2 bill that I have...
How much silver is it worth, by the way?
$1.
Well...
I did the math.
Okay. Never mind.
The $2 bill, however, is not a silver certificate. Right here above the picture of Jefferson, it says United States note, and underneath it, it says the United States of America will pay to the bearer on demand $2. These
and
bills
the dollars,
look...
in turn, can be converted into some number of ounces of silver.
Yeah, well, they look very similar. They just changed the wording. Instead of United States note, now it says Federal Reserve note.
Okay.
And on the bottom, where it says the United States of America and then $2, in between there, it used to say the United States of America will pay to the bearer $2. Now it's just got this nifty little graphic. So it doesn't promise that the United States will pay you anything for this.
Right.
That's at the base of many of these objections to fiat money systems.
Right.
That it's all just this big scam and everything's ultimately worthless.
Well, everything is ultimately worthless, really. I mean, a silver bar doesn't have intrinsic value.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's worth something because people say that it's worth something. People buy World of Warcraft gold on eBay. It's not that World of Warcraft gold, which is a bunch of little digital numbers flying back and forth over the internet, is intrinsically worth something. It's just that people have decided that their money is worth exchanging for this fake currency that can buy you stuff in an imaginary game world.
Yeah, I've heard of other potential replacement systems, including hours. Man hours, person hours.
Okay.
Using that as a basis for the system. And other people have suggested using other things that are more real or that have a more stable, constant value that's relevant to our daily lives. My thing is that, you know, 1 hour from one person may not be worth the same as an hour from somebody else.
True, yeah.
Especially when you start talking about experience in different areas.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, the reason silver is worth something, the reason it's a precious metal and gold is a more precious metal is because there's a limited amount of silver in the world. And you can get more by mining it, but it gets harder over time. And gold is even more rare than silver, and so it's worth more. And that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, you can't eat gold, and it's not very worth building houses out of or anything. It just has value because people say it has value. And by the same token, the United States dollar has value because of that little phrase, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. If the United States government goes belly up tomorrow, then your little pieces of paper won't be worth much. But at that point, I think you'll have bigger problems than what you do with your pieces of paper. All right, so there's this organization which used to be called NORFED. I think they changed their name. Now they're called Liberty Services, so they're explicitly tied to these Liberty dollars. And they said, hey, we need to get off of fiat currency and get back onto a silver standard, the way things were in the good old days. So here, we'll distribute these little silver coins, which they're an ounce of silver, measured exactly, and they have the number $10 stamped on them. They're no longer stamped with the number $10, but I'll get into that in a minute. They were at some point stamped with the number $10. And they would, what you could do is you could exchange your fiat money for $10 Liberty coins. They have the little dollar sign on them. They have attractive designs. They're stamped and polished with a mirror surface, and you can go around spending them, saying, here's $10. Now, some of the merchants will just say, never seen that coin before, and put it in their till and say, here you go, my good man, here's $10 worth of goods. Some of them will look at the coin and say, what the hell is this? I've never seen this thing before. At which point you pull out your armchair philosophy and say, look, my friend, don't you want to get back on the silver standard that the United States was on in the good old days? And then you try to convince people that this is real currency and that they should go ahead and try to re-spend it on somebody else.
All of which is completely legal and legit. Because as long as you're not trying to represent that it's actual money,
there's the problem.
That it's actual. I could walk in with a coffee cup and say, "This is my particular coffee cup," and because I'm famous on the intertubes, this is now worth more. So I will give it to you in exchange for a Ferrari. As long as the guy agrees that the coffee cup is worth the Ferrari and wants to make the exchange, I think it might actually be legal. By the way, if you have a Ferrari and you'd like to trade it for this coffee cup, it's available.
And again, I'd like to add that Liberty Dollars is something that in many situations is more or less technically legal, like Amway.
Right.
For the most part, with some exceptions, you will not be arrested for counterfeiting for passing around these Liberty Dollars. There are exceptions, believe me, but most of the time you'll get away with it. But the problem is, silver has a value which is, I mean, basically, like I said, silver is worth what people are willing to pay for it. And what people are willing to pay for it at any given time is actually precisely calculated. There's an options market, or there's a commodities market, just like there's a stock market. You can buy a share of Microsoft for some number of dollars. You can buy an ounce of silver for some number of dollars. And the thing is that when you got this $10 coin, if you were to look on the internet and figure out what an ounce of silver is actually worth, because that's what the coin is, 1 ounce of silver, you would discover that it was worth about $5. Now, the silver price fluctuates over time, and it's gone up since then. I think it's actually now around $17, which is great, except that well, it's bad if you have a coin that's worth $17 that says it's worth $10. But they solved that problem. When the price started drifting up so it was actually close to $10, they said, hey, look, we're going to restamp all your Norfed coins and make them say $20. Now you can spend them for $20 of services. And now 17 is getting uncomfortably close to 20, so they just recently, like this year, restamped all the coins to say $50. Nice round number, right? So now you can buy an ounce of silver that says $50 on it. And at that point, you might start to wonder, why does the number on the coin actually mean anything? I mean, couldn't they take a stamp and say $1 million and put it on your ounce of silver? And then if you find somebody gullible enough to give you $1 million worth of stuff for your ounce of silver, then hey, you're looking pretty good.
Wouldn't it make more sense to get rid of the label and just stamp it as 1 ounce?
No, it wouldn't make more sense from Liberty Services' perspective.
Oh, there you got to go and spoil it. I'm saying as a potentially valid and useful system of money, having a coin that just said this is 1 ounce of silver, and now that the entire world's wired, you could find out every day what the value of an ounce of silver was, and it would be worth its appropriate value.
And if you think that the value of an ounce of silver will go up, as many people do, then what you do is you buy bars of silver that say 1 ounce, and you don't pay $50 for a $17 ounce of silver. You pay the spot price plus a small transaction fee.
When you buy these ounces of silver, what do you buy them with?
You buy them with fiat currency.
Oh! So basically, these people who are selling the Liberty Dollars are plenty happy to give Liberty Dollars away to people in exchange for fiat currency.
Oh, sure. They're taking your money.
Sweet.
And they're taking, in fact, twice or more as much as the silver they're shelling out is worth. Now, you could argue that they're going to some expense to have these things stamped and polished and everything, but not twice the value of the silver.
What's being stamped and polished here?
The coin.
Oh, okay.
The silver.
There's the people that was buying the coins. Sure.
Yeah. So I have a fairly dim view of Liberty Dollars. Two people, my good friend who has been on the show before, and I don't want to talk about him, was into this at one time. I don't know if he still is. And then I got prospected in Rudy's recently when he came up to me. I don't know for sure that it was Liberty Dollars, but he came in and started trying to strike up a conversation about fiat currency.
Not your friend, somebody else.
No, somebody else.
Yes.
Some stranger started trying to talk about fiat currency to me, and I just figure that nobody in the world tries to strike up conversations with strangers about fiat currency unless they're trying to sell something. So that's two people I've run into who I think are using Liberty Dollars. Like I said, Liberty Dollars is real into libertarian politics. They did this special run of Liberty coins that had Ron Paul's face stamped onto them. And, you know, I'm just saying to my libertarian friends, I understand your concerns about the government and about fiat currency, but in my humble opinion, you're not going to fix the system by by uncritically giving your money to some guy who is hawking silver and pretending to have some alternative to the whole dollar system. In fact, you actually might get arrested for counterfeiting, as some people have. Let's see, I had a link to the story, which, again, all my links are at atheistexperience.blogspot.com on this date. Yeah, here it is. 2007, a couple was arrested trying to spend Liberty Dollars. The suspects may be the first to try and use the private barter currency in Walworth County, District Attorney Phil Coast said. The couple is also the first to post their story on a new blog. Okay, this is kind of a pro site, so they're complaining about how they got unfairly mistreated for trying to pass these Liberty Dollars around. But the fact is, this is a very fuzzy line between counterfeiting and just opening up a new item for barter, because it has a dollar sign on it, and you're encouraged to try to spend it for the face value instead of like being open about, here's an ounce of silver, how much would that be worth to you? You're going to take a coin that's stamped with $50 and you're going to try to buy $50 worth of stuff for it. And that is really taking advantage of people being gullible and trying to get them to accept your money or your silver without really briefing them first on what the stuff is.
The other thing is,
that's why there have been counterfeiting cases where people got in trouble.
Yeah, the other thing is that, you know, if you think about it, I mean, to me, we're not saying there's no problems with the money system. I think there's plenty of problems. You know, the Federal Reserve can pretty much make money whenever they want, which changes the value of everything else. They invent it. And by the way, all the interest that you pay on loans and things like that, that's just money that's invented from. But people take this and go down a particular path. And the thing about the Liberty Dollars and other potential solutions like this that don't make sense to me is your entire system is based on still the same fiat currency. You're taking your original $10 coin, and yes, you have gained value. I mean, originally you paid probably $8.50 or something like that to get your $10 coin.
Sure,
that was worth $5.
You would have gained this value just by buying silver bars.
Right, and yet you're using it as if it were fiat currency of the same labeled value, $20, $50, whatever. You will take. You spent fiat currency to get this in most cases. You will take fiat currency as change. If you spend your $50 silver coin for $18 worth of stuff, you will take fiat currency in return. And considering that ounce of silver is only worth about $17, you may have actually got a profit. So if that's the route that you're going to take, wouldn't it make more sense just to invest in silver in the first place?
Yeah.
Continue using the fiat currency so that nobody else, so you're not adding to the confusion, you're not risking counterfeiting charges or arrest or anything, and yet you've actually invested in something that you feel is worthwhile and encourage others to do so too.
What I like to say about Liberty Dollars now is that they combine all the convenience of carrying silver in your pocket with all the financial sense of investing in dollars. They're really not a good idea.
I like that. Plus, they don't fold. And by the way,
they do actually have certificates that you can get.
yeah, and
So
I wish
you can
the
have pieces of paper that are supposedly good for silver in a warehouse somewhere.
I wish the U.S. Mint would stop trying to mint dollar coins. Please stop. You get it wrong every time. They're all slightly bigger than a quarter, and we've changed the hue a little, so this one's a slight shiny gold. And all it does is confuse everybody, like when you made the fives pink or whatever hell color they are now.
They're pink, yep.
Yes, people get used to it. But the dollar coins, to me, you want to talk about financial scams, that's the financial scam. There's two financial scams that are real U.S. currency. One is pennies, because it costs us more to make them than they're worth.
Right. I'm for doing away with the
Let's
penny.
get rid of them. And dollar coins that are almost indistinguishable from quarters are stupid. That's the scam. There are callers on the line.
Oh, finally.
We've got like 3 minutes left in the show. There's 3 minutes left.
For podcast listeners who sometimes complain about the lack of callers,
We're going to do
I
this.
picked a boring topic.
We're going to do this real quick.